92% of the profitability from a dealership is going to come from fixed ops.
Wow. The money comes. It always comes.
Show me the most efficient used car operation, and I'll show you someone who can sell the most new cars.
Buying cars is 5 to 10 times harder than selling cars.
How much more efficient could we be at the dealership level? What if the dealer can manage the inventory through an app?
Right? People are trying to figure out the secret or the tip or the trick of how to become more efficient. Well,
are you wasting your time and money on inefficiencies in the business? Are sales down and lead conversion rates are low? Are you having problems building or maintaining inventory levels? What does it really take to win in the automotive industry?
Get the cars that make sense for your store rather than just wishing at an auction. So it gives you that better control.
With over 25 years of experience, Darrell the Wolf Steed isn't just another industry voice. He's the guy who's out there solving real problems for dealers just like you.
They'll even say in the Pacific Northwest where you're at that it's a tougher market. It's, it's tougher to find cars. The market's a little bit softer. And in the midst of all this, your turn doubled and your profit's up 75%.
Yes.
The truth hurts only when it should. Are you ready to hear the truths? Darrell is here to unpack the hard truths and the proven strategies that will take your dealership from struggling to soaring. And he is taking it all in the streets, with real talk, open dialogue, unfiltered conversations. This is the podcast series, Street Smarts, powered by SmartWolf Consulting.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Street Smarts. I'm Darrell Steed, your host of this podcast. And today we get to be joined by somebody who has seen it all from top to bottom, from salesperson to owner to investor, and now coming up with new products and solutions. Why this is such a great person to have on the show is a couple different reasons. First was previously, before he decided to exit that side of the industry, the number one Jaguar Land Rover dealer in the country, 35 years of experience from salesperson all the way up to owning a dealership. So really showing how you can start from the bottom and get to the top. And most importantly, and I know that he has plenty of accolades, such as writing a book called Driven to Succeed, which is an actual great book to read when you want to overcome adversity and see what it takes to get there. But Scott was the first store that we built the buying center, the acquisition strategy through some very interesting ways to do it. And the fact that he was one of very few operators that understood that you find the right people and then you let them do what they're good at. So with no further ado, you guys, welcome Scott Biehl to the show. Scott, thank you so much for coming on. And listen, to the way we start every podcast is tell us where you're winning in life. What's going good in the Scott Biehl universe?
Yeah, thanks, Darrell. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. And there's a lot going on out there in the car business right now, right? We went through our COVID shutdown in 2020 for a few months, and we came out of that booming as an industry for a couple of years with super high growth, and that's kind of mellowed out a little bit. And we kind of knew on the used car side that this time was coming, that when you don't sell new cars, there's not a whole lot of used cars out there to go out and get. So in 2022, I did sell my stores and step away from what I call the day-to-day retail side of the car business, and basically told everybody I retired, just so I could take a little bit of time off, and had a little bit of reflection and wrote my book, Driven to Succeed, which is it's a bestseller on Amazon. It's also on Audible. I recorded that. So, and once that got launched earlier this year, then sitting on podcasts like this one with Street Smarts, and did a few podcasts, obviously, and then started a company called Momentum Dealer Services Group. And with that, like you, Darrell, we help dealers around the country just kind of figure out how to communicate with certain tools. Like one of the things that we have is Loop Me In, which we'll talk about further on the show, that not only helps in the reconditioning process, but really just communication throughout the dealership. And then another product called Recover, which is a great GPS product, helps dealers manage inventory. We know that inventory levels are rising daily on the new car side, and maybe not so much on the used car side, but still trying to manage that inventory, managing flooring cost, and then having an opportunity to upsell the consumer and make some money in finance. And so um, that's what I've been spending a lot of time on. On top of that, I have another company called Alliance Financial Solutions, where we help provide capital for dealers in the M&A space, out and buying 10, 20, 50, $100 million stores. We go out and we source the capital, whether it be debt or equity for them. So, yeah, I'm not really retired. I'm super busy, and I just love to help others succeed.
It's great that and I'm glad that you kind of shared that with us, because it kind of shows you, when it's in your blood, or like when you have an itch for it or you're passionate about it, you can say that, like, as you said, you took the time away to reflect, maybe recharge the batteries, kind of reset. And as quick as you got out, it was like, now you're back in it in some fashion, not in the fashion you were, but in a different way. You also had some pretty exciting news happen, because I know you have a couple of really great kids. One of them just recently got married. I saw the pictures. They were stunning. I'm sure that was a little bittersweet for you, seeing, your daughter, obviously, and your son growing up, getting older and moving on to their adult lives. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, thanks.
But, when we talk about like some of the things you're doing, because I want to dive right into that, specifically the services you provide or the products you provide, because when we talk about used cars, right, it's very process oriented. New cars, used cars, just operational business. And it's, how do we become more effective? I don't want to use words like faster, easier, better, but how do you become more effective and be able to manage these things without having to rip your hair out or get frustrated? And your tool, Loop Me In, is kind of one of those innovative things that I think a lot of people need to know about. I've seen it. I think it is absolutely genius because it has some integrations I've never seen before in some of this stuff. And, having an app that you can use for your service operation, which we know, for those of you guys that are watching, turn time is the single biggest thing that influences where the money starts to be won or lost. Because if it takes you 10 days from the time you acquire to getting it out, then that's 10 days you've lost in doing it. And if you can speed that up, you speed up your retail time. So if you could, Scott, tell us a little bit about the Loop Me In and kind of the unique integrations you guys have built into this service app that tracks it through service, but does more than that. It's not your standard recon type app. It's kind of on steroids. It does multiple things that people haven't really thought about.
Yeah, thanks for that. So, first off, yeah, with Loop Me In, I mean, look, it's a phenomenal product, and we know that there's other products out there in terms of reconditioning products. But when I saw Loop Me In and saw not just how we're able to track vehicles going through a reconditioning process, but also just communicate with different departments throughout the store. And what I mean by that is, and you've seen the demo, Darrell, but when a vendor, so I'll go back for a second. When you're at the dealership level and you're a manager, I've been through every stage from start as a salesperson at 21. Like you mentioned, I worked my way up into owning multiple dealerships and whatnot, but I've sat at every level and really understand each level. And when you're a GSM or a used car manager, especially those two positions, I'd say, you're in the heat of the battle. You're sitting there behind the desk. You've got two right now in this day and age. You got two screens going on. You're literally live at the auction buying cars, trying to buy cars, right? You're trying to figure out when these cars are coming up. You're desking 3 deals at the same time. It's the end of the month. You're trying to close out the books. The admin is calling downstairs saying, "Hey, we need this and that." You're going through all that, and you just had some cars arrive, and now you got 3 vendors that are standing in front of your desk, and they got their little notepad and they're saying, hey, Scott, hey, Darrell, do you want to approve this work for me? You got 3 windshields, 4 bumper repairs, 2 wheels, this, that. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, hold on a second. I do want the work to get done, but how do I manage to know that the work's going to get done in a timely manner? The work really needs to get done. These guys are in my face. I'm trying to tell them, well, can you hold on a second? Let me finish this. Then as you finally do lift your head up, the guy's gone. The vendor's gone. You're trying to get a hold of him. And he's texting or calling you back saying, hey, I know you're busy. I had to go down the street to the other dealer, but I'll try and swing by tomorrow, the next day when you're freed up. What just happened to you during that process? Darrell, I mean, you sat in that desk, with me, right? What happens? What do you do during that process? How do you get your arms wrapped around that process?
It's near impossible. I mean, I'm not saying it is, but you then either have to schedule days, or you have to have somebody else do it, or you end up missing that, and then you get it out on the line and it's not done, and then do it later. And it's just one of those things that without the right solution, or without the right setup, it makes it to where something gets missed. And even if you get it dialed in, and I know we did eventually, but it was one of those things where you still miss things because there's too many moving things when you're doing more than one job. If you're just settled in and that's all you do, okay, easy enough. That's all you do. But that's rarely the case in the operation side of it. So
Right.
you just go like this, like, well, now you sell a car and something didn't get done because you thought it did, but it didn't. And now you have a due bill or a WEO. And the customer's not happy because the car's not right, or it makes you reduce the car because the car's not right. So it's just one of those things that it's preventable, but it's rarely something that we think about because we just get too much stuff coming in all at one time.
Right. So what happens with Loop Me In though is, again, I'm a used car manager, GSM, whatever, and I walk my inventory every day in the morning first when I get there. So I'm there early and I walk in the inventory. I'm not desking any deals at that point in time. I'm talking early in the morning, right? It's early in the morning. You're not desking deals yet. You're not, the admin staff's not crawling up your rear for information. You've got this time, and so, you know, but unfortunately, I want to walk maybe those cars with my service manager. What's the busiest time for a service manager?
Six
Early in the
thirty,
morning, right?
yeah,
So
7 in the morning, 8,
he's trying
whenever
to
they get.
direct traffic on the drive. He's got 5, 6, 7 advisors going crazy. One called in sick. He's trying to handle a heat case. He's trying to direct traffic, right? He doesn't have time to be on the roof with me or at the storage lot, a mile down the road walking the inventory, right? So now if I wait for him, now I'm busy.
Yep.
So how do we communicate between a service manager, the vendors that we just spoke about, all those things? Well, with Loop Me In, I'm able to take my phone. I have an app on it. I walk the inventory and I look at this cars that just came in and I go, okay, this needs a front bumper painted. I put it in the system. I pick the vendor I want and say front bumper, it's got some wheel rash on it, needs fixing, maybe, windshield, whatever. There's 2 or 3 vendors are going to touch that car. I then can go ahead and through the app, I can put in the amounts I want to spend on those repairs and put it in the deal. It will send a text message to the 3 different vendors that I've picked that say this work is ready at XYZ Motors. Come to the store and get it done. Well, now when I'm desking deals, these guys aren't in front of me anymore because they already know what work has to be done. On top of that, when they're doing the work and they finish it, they can take a picture of the work. And then my app dings me and says the work is done. I can literally look at a picture and go, yeah, the bumper looks great. I then can approve the work, send an invoice to my admin right away saying this work is approved. It gets booked to the deal. The vendor gets paid right away, or if it's 30 days or whatever that cycle that they're on. And now we're just that more efficient. That's only one, I'd say 5 or 10% maybe max of what Loop Me In does.
Sure.
It also communicates through the entire store. To your point, due bills. You can put in there in F&I that you're chasing down a duplicate title, an extra set of keys. I mean, there's just numerous things that you can do. And so what we found is by communicating with each other, that's why the name is Loop Me In. It's basically literally that. It's like if I would have been kept in the loop of all these things that are going on, how much more efficient could we be at the dealership level? And so that's how Loop Me In was designed. And the crazy thing about Loop Me In and then also Recover that we'll speak about is, and this is what people don't know, is when I decided to have my consulting business and bring a couple of really good products on board that I thought were unique to the industry, but also is a big problem solver, as I actually did my own Shark Tank. And I had 7, 8 different companies come in, pitch me. I have an office here. I live in Incline Village. I live in Lake Tahoe. I have an office here. And so they came in and they all pitched me within a day or so. I had them lined up to come in. And then these are the 2 products that I picked out of everything that got pitched to me, because I felt, and I looked at it as not so much really as from an agency standpoint of how much money can I make. I looked at it from the dealer level. I looked at it from the manager level of if I'm still running stores as a dealer principal, if I'm running stores as the GM, if I'm running stores as when I was a GSM or a used car director or new car manager or F, does this help me run my store better? And if the answer was yes, and it was different and unique than anything else on the market, I want to be a part of it. And that's how I got involved with Loop Me In and Recover.
So I really like the fact that, and when we talk about that, guys, is, for those of you guys that are not familiar with the car business, then maybe this isn't something that, we relative, but those of you are that most people will be watching this is if you could minimize your turn time, and we measure turn by from the time of acquisition to the time it is front time ready through the shop, everything else by 1 day. Take a pen and paper right now, write it down. What, if you know this, right? What's your daily lot rent? What's your daily flooring interest? If you pay all per capital out of your operating expense, it's a little less of an issue, but still it's your owner's money. So you'd want to know is if you just did it by 1 day on all your inventory and you did that, how much money would you potentially make and or save, right? So because again, you either save it or you make it depending on the used car strategy. What I think is interesting is like I put the math after seeing the demo with you to 3 groups that I work with, and you're talking a difference of anywhere between $2,600 a day and $7,000 a day. Well, you start doing the math on that. That's 1 day,
right?
That's not 3. That's not 4. That's not 5. And some of these groups that I help are like at a 10-day turn. So if we just got them down to 7, like that would be radical. So it's one of those things, and what I really appreciate you saying, and I know you, I've known you for years, is that it wasn't, yes, making money is obviously part of it, but it was not the motivation. It's how do you put something that solves the problem and helps the store? Because at the end of the day, it's how do you make that store and the staff have a better opportunity to do what they need to do, which is always how when, I worked with you and worked for you, that's what it was about. The money comes. It always comes as long as your staff is taken care of and then you take care of the customers. But if there's roadblock after roadblock, or some owners, okay, we don't need to say their names, but we know who they are, that constantly either don't get the right technology, they don't allow their people to do what they do, and then they wonder why they're not successful. Well, I just had this conversation yesterday. Taking care of your staff is just as important as taking care of your customers, being that they are the heartbeat, and without them, there is no customer service. So the fact you came up with a product, or that you found a product and then you made them pitch you so that you had to see the validity of what it would do and what it would solve, I think is fantastic, right? It shows the both the entrepreneurial, but it also shows the connection that you have to making it better for people or giving people that opportunity. Now, the other product that you came out with, which is Recover, which I just think it's slick. Okay. I think it's easy. And I've dealt with the other products out there, the low jacks, the etches, all the other things, and having Recover. Just again, I look at time components, how quickly I can do this, and then the value to the dealership and customer, so that you, again, don't have due bills and WIOs, I think is great. So tell us a little bit about what that is, because it is kind of it falls into a space that people have heard of stuff like this, but nothing quite like this.
Yeah, thanks for that, Darrell. So with Recover, you know, first of all, it's built by Kudelski, and Kudelski, if you look, I mean, they're one of the biggest, security tech companies in the world. Their background, they built the Niagara recorder in the film industry. They've been around since, I don't know, the 40s, 50s, I guess, something like that. Very long time, multi-billion-dollar company out of Switzerland. They have an office in Scottsdale, Arizona as well. They actually built a device that was used in Mannheim auto auctions. And the device was for when you're in, those of us who've been at the auction, plenty of us have on this podcast. Think about tracking down all that inventory. So they built this product for that. Well, once they built the product for that, they came to the conclusion that, hey, what if we could take this product? It's wireless, number one. It's GPS, it's triangulated, phenomenal product, really high tech, And so they built this product and they said, look, what if the dealer can manage the inventory through an app, and then on top of that, sell through to F&I? So they built the product, and the reason why I like it so much is because it's not hardwired in. So you scan the back of it, QR code, punch in the new stock number. It tells you the VIN number, all the information. It's in your phone. And I like it for the fact that, again, I always go back to the simplicity of, I'm a car salesman, right? I mean, that's where I started. I just, that's who I am. So when a customer comes on the lot, especially when I was running my stores at, say, Jaguar Land Rover Los Angeles, when I had 4 or 5 different car lots, right? Storage lot here, service was down the street at one point, and we had all these different lots. Well, you know how it is. I mean, consumer comes in, hey, I saw this Range Rover online. I'd like to see it, drive it. Hopefully, you guys have it. Interested in buying one today. Situation. Can't find a car, right? Where's the car at? It's at such and such lot. You drive, in LA traffic, an hour, I say an hour, it's a mile and a half that takes you an hour and a half is what it feels like, right? Depending on time of day. And you get all the way over there and the car's not there. And now the consumer's frustrated. You as a salesperson's frustrated. You can't find the car. The keys are around. It's a nightmare, right? Well, with Recover, I literally can look it up and go, I know exactly where the car's at on my phone. I literally can hit the icon and it will give me directions, walking or driving, to that car. So now, how much time am I saving on the consumer side of doing that? On top of that, we're managing those new and used car inventory situations. And on top of that, we're able to sell the product through to the consumer and make money in F&I. What I love about Recover is we're able to go to these dealership groups, do a complete install on the product, train your people, and the cost to the dealer up front is zero. So we don't charge the dealer anything for it. We sign an agreement. They have to sell a certain penetration rate and all those things, but we don't charge you up front. So as the dealer, you've got 200, 300, 400 cars in stock on your lot. You have all the tracking devices. Your staff has been trained on it. Everything works, great with all that piece of it. Then you're selling the product in F&I or off the addendum. Either way, not a problem. You're selling it, and now the deal's getting funded by the bank, right? It's a finance deal. Then at the end of the month, we're going to reconcile and say, hey, Darrell, you sold 100 units, so you owe us X for those units. And by the way, we've already sent 100 replacement units to you. So for the dealer standpoint, yeah, they're paying us for the product, but we're the last ones to get paid. So that way, it's really not an out-of-pocket type, expense. So real excited to see Recover, how it's working for dealers. I was real excited to see Loop Me In. So when I was watching the Loop Me In product, I came with the idea and I said, hey, wait a second. what if I had Recover on the lot and I could track that car and loop me in, as you've seen it, Darrell, we have buckets, right? So, hey, this car's in the reconditioning process. It says it's in detail. Over here, it says it's in the mechanical phase. It's having tires put on it, wherever the phase that car might be. But you're manually putting that information in. So what I did is I got Recover and Loop Me In to come together. And now when you're in the Loop Me In app, as long as you have Recover and you go on to see how many cars you have in detail, there's a little icon for each car. Well, when I click on that icon, I can see the cars physically in detail. It says it's in detail. But what if I go into the detail app and I click on a car and it says it's 4 miles down the road at the reconditioning lot?
Yeah.
Okay. But not only that, it's been there for 2 days. The car hasn't moved for 2 days. Well, that's a problem. So what I've been able to do by combining the two as a bundle to the dealer is now we are going to the dealer and saying, here's Recover. We're not going to charge you for it. By the way, we're not even going to charge you for Loop Me In. We're going to give you Recover and Loop Me In up front, and you're going to pay us based off of your Recover sales. They're both products are going to talk to each other, and we're going to help you manage your inventory and your process, especially your new car PDI and your used car reconditioning process, along with the communication between service, admin, your vendors and everything else. Now we have a combined product, if you will, that I think is one of the best things I've seen in the car business, which is why I'm excited to share it with you.
Well, and I'm glad that we got a chance to really talk about that. And listen, anybody that wants more information should definitely take a look at this, because he's giving you the very top layer of just the, we'll call it the trifold of what you would see at a road show. I've gotten to see a little bit more of this, and I can tell you from 3 things that I know in the industry. And as you guys know, you've probably seen some of these podcasts. There's very few people that I would ever let come on and talk about a product, because that's not what we do, unless it actually could do something to help dealers. And after seeing this, I looked at it 3 ways. 1, every piece of this bundle saves a dealer money, because it either saves them an expense or it makes them money right out of the gate, which I've never heard a dealer say they want to save less or make more or make less. So it kind of hits both of those on the head for any of the people that are looking at the dollars. 2 is you're now having something. We have a lot of younger people coming into the auto business. So not seasoned individuals like myself and Scott, but some younger individuals. And what we have found, or what I've seen and the industry have seen, is the lack of training, the absence of training, or just understanding, because it's been very technological based. It hasn't been like the baptism by fire. So you haven't had to go through some of these rougher times. And then even some of the people that came in right before COVID and got to experience COVID thinks the car business is just this magical universe, which they have not seen when the other side goes, right? They haven't seen the bear market. They've only seen the bull markets of it, right? And this app, what it does is, for those younger people or the people that are more technologically inclined, is it allows them to streamline. So it creates time back, right? And the more time you have back, the more you can be effective in other areas. But then 2 is, like you said, with Recover, you don't have to log it in. You don't have to wire it in. You don't have to do anything like that. So I've reduced B-backs for customers, new and used. I've reduced things being forgot to be put in, and then you have chargebacks or things of that nature, because it is something you can install right there. And then I've logged it into, like you said, I don't know about other dealers, and I'd love to talk to anybody who's figured this out. I personally will come fly to your store to see it. But detail seems to be the abyss of where cars get lost in a recon process. I don't know how. I still have not figured this out. It's like they get swallowed up by the Kraken.
Darrell, you know how many times, because we worked together for a couple of years there, and you know me well enough to know I didn't just sit in my office all day. I love talking to you. I love talking to customers. I love talking to detailers. Okay. I mean, I love just talking to, hey, what's going on or whatever. And there was always that, special used car we took in on trade, or that, crazy new car that we just got launched or whatever. And it was so funny you say detail, because I would be standing there and I'd say, hey, where's the, where's that used G63 we got in on trade? And someone, I'm like, are we gonna have it up for the weekend? And 99% of response was what, Darrell? Where's the car at?
Oh, it's over on the lot. It's over in storage. It's up on the roof. It's like they don't know. Like, oh, we'll find it.
Or they say, oh no, it's back in detail.
Yeah. Back in detail.
And most, I would say, a lot of GMs, a lot of owners would be excited that the car would be in detail. Like, okay, cool. Well, then I know the car's coming up, right?
Sure.
So I'd be like, well, I got to go back and check this car out. And I'd march my way back there. That car's nowhere to be found in detail. Okay. Well, where is the car? And now I'm calling the used car manager. I'm calling the GSM. I'm calling, where is this car at? Well, it was back there earlier. Well, it's not back there. Well, I think they might be putting gas in it or whatever. I mean, it's just, to your point, it just kind of floats out there. We don't know where these things are at.
Well, and what I liked with your thing too, with Recover, and a couple with Loop Me In, right? Either one can stand alone, but when you couple those was, and the one thing you didn't talk about, right, but it's part of that detail that I liked is now it's been there for 2 days, right? Day and a half, a day, whatever it is. You can assign the time frame that you think it should take, which I think anything more than the day is ridiculous in detail. But if it's the 2 days, then the fact that it lights up, or you can set to alert, like, hey, it's now, I don't have to go run around. I don't have to sit there and call different people. I can go, this has been more than a day. I immediately can then put a note, or I can call the person that isn't responsible for that and say, hey, we have 3 cars that are over 24 hours. What is going on? Right. Because everyone's now looped in. And I think the thing that we would just touch a little bit on is how would you call it? The disconnection, I guess, in the auto industries. Now, we were very fortunate at the Mercedes store because you were okay with the fact that we wanted to create that connection with service and sales. It wasn't this disconnection, we operate separately, but is where services and sales, they work together, but they're never really aligned. There seems to be this kind of weird disconnection when it gets stuff through, or they want to charge us all the money. And then this allows where if everyone's looped in, no one can say, I didn't know. Right? Because it's always the finger pointing of oh, Darrell didn't tell me that this was that. And then oh, hey, Joe didn't tell me that. And it's now everyone knows because everyone's tagged in, and it's okay, you're alerted when it gets this point. You're alert. Everyone's been made aware so that we now have to operate as a team, right? We win together, we lose together, which I think is a big component to speeding things up, right? Because there is a lot of this rather than harmony.
And I'll take it a step farther too, Darrell, is all my decades of operating stores and stuff. I mean, we're back to the real car business now, period.
Yeah, we sure are.
It is what it is. We're back to the real car business. And when you're in the real car business stage and your profits are going down, you really start to dive into expense control. What are my expenses? Where are we at, or whatever? So one of the biggest expenses that's on the financial statement is what? Personnel. Okay. So you see it with public companies. They release, we cut out 15,000 people yesterday. We did. So at a store level, though, when management, I'll say, or ownership comes in, whether it's, I've been on both sides. I work for Asbury Automotive Group, as you know. So I've done the public, I've done the private cap myself, worked on both sides. Those meetings are hard to have. And you're like, okay, start cutting expense. We have too many people based off the gross profit we have coming and all this stuff. Well, when you start cutting out personnel expense, and then all of it, what they're not seeing is, let's say we cut out a bunch of personnel expense, but then we're not tracking things like days going through reconditioning, right? See my point? It's let's fix this over here. What we think we're fixing, we're cutting down, but we're not fixing a process or two that could help us with efficiency. You're really not doing anything. You're not making your store any better.
Because you're not addressing. You
know what's crazy? You get the statement after you cut all those people out, and you didn't make any more money the next month.
Well, because you didn't address the actual issue, because you didn't have the right data, the decision.
Correct. So
Yeah.
now if you take in a loop me in, recover, things like that, where we're speeding up communication and whatnot, and then let's say you did have to reduce staff, you may actually create a real savings there is what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
Because of you're doing both, not just one side of it.
Well, and I think the other side too, which I think you brought up, like I think there's some stores that have individualized tasks or focus, which obviously you should be a significantly more effective if you have one task that you're going after. But
Right.
well, let's just say 75% of auto dealerships out there typically have, if you're a used car person or an inventory, is you're doing desking and inventory, and like, you're doing more than one thing. So the other side of this is when you add that efficiency, now you're not being bogged down by, we'll call the admin of the job, because
Correct.
you have something that can make you efficient, while you can now put energy into the things you need to do, because that kind of fills the gaps, right? It fills the times where you were like, I have to do a lot of running around. I have to do this. No, now, like you said, with the invoices, on the invoices alone, I would have loved this thing, because when you sit there and like, I have to approve POs and I got to remember which cars are which and this and that, like that is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Knowing it's like you can have the vendors in there, they're set up, you get them set up in this, boom, and you can approve that and it goes to your accounts payable or receive, and you're like, it's done. Like that right there is 2 hours a week easily right off the plate.
Okay,
So
well, take a step further is you got all these cars in, you're not using loop me in, you busted butt to get all these cars up for the weekend. They came up on the weekend, you got them through the shop, you got them out of detail, you got them online with pictures, you have this phenomenal weekend, and then your reconditioning manager left Friday, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, was off for the weekend. Maybe your used car manager was off, someone was off, whatever. And because you pushed all those cars through, the vendors walked in on Friday afternoon at 4:30 and dropped off all these invoices on your desk. However, you were off for the weekend.
yep.
Okay. So now you sold these 5 cars or whatever over the weekend, monster grosses, everything looks great. You recap the deals on, got them all in the bank, recap them, send them upstairs Tuesday morning, and then you're dropping off your invoices on Monday. By the time that, the admin staff upstairs going through the deals, now all of a sudden they're sending deals back saying, hey, we just got this bill from XYZ vendor, 400, 600, 800, 1200, new set of wheels and tires, because we had a truck that we wanted to upgrade. It's $3,000. All of a sudden you got $10,000, $15,000 worth of gross going out the door. You now have to recap all the deals. You crapped out your F&I team. You crapped out your salespeople who got the commissions. You got out of your Monday morning meeting with all that gross, telling me how much money we're going to make this month. And 4 days later, I'm in reverse risk looking at what we're tracking now, and it's not even close to what we were tracking on Monday.
Yeah,
Right?
fair
Is
enough.
that a
Right?
reality or not?
That's 100% a reality. I remember those meetings vividly of where did the $10,000 go that you said we had made? Um,
And then,
And I
and
think
by
that's
the way, if for those of you who've been on reverse risk, Loop Me In is built by the guys who built reverse risk.
Yeah, and if you guys don't know
Oh.
reverse risk or what it is, I call it the red and green report. Okay, and so for no confusion, green is good, red is not. Okay. Anytime we had red blocks, we knew that Scott was coming to ask us what was going on. So I just think it's one of those things people need to look at, because we're trying to figure out, right? People are trying to figure out the secret or the tip or the trick of how to become more efficient. Well, efficiency comes down to 2 things. And if someone wants to say there's others, great, I'd listen. But in all the years I've been working, this is my experiences. It comes down to hard work and then the right tools, right? You can have the right tools, but if you don't work very hard, it doesn't matter. So when you have the right tools and then you know how to build a process or you know how to use them, you're going to be efficient. And when we talk about used cars, if you haven't seen it yet, we have this thing happening. It's called compression. And it's getting like about right here. It's about as narrow edge as it can be. And the only way you're going to open up compression right now and then be ready when things turn 2, 3, 4 years from now is becoming more efficient in your turn, becoming more efficient in the service operations, becoming more efficient with vendors. Also, I'd ask you the question, how many vendors do you have in your store or group? This is a way to where you can actually measure that. Do you really need 20 vendors or could you do it with 5, right? I mean, so it really solves a lot of those things that I don't think people think about. Like you said, they make decisions based on half truths or half analytics rather than measuring it and saying, 1, do we really have a problem? Or 2, are we just not efficient with what we have? And I think
and to be clear too, Darrell, so we have outside vendors, obviously, that we deal with Loop Me In, but on top of that, we also have our internal. So when you're dealing with an internal service writer, dispatcher, service manager, whoever you're dealing with at your particular store to get work done on your used car reconditioning, it works the same way.
Sure.
You're going to get a text, or you're going to get, whatever saying, hey, through Loop Me In, take a look at these cars, XYZ, this is the work that we found, and you're able to approve that. By the way, not only are you able to prove it if you're at the store, what if you are at an auction or you're at a conference, or you literally can, like you're sitting at your desk in front of your phone, you still can approve all the work that's going through the shop digitally and not miss a beat. And all those things make or cost you money.
Sure, I agree. I mean, especially when you have one person doing it. Now, switching gears a little bit, obviously, I'd like to talk a little bit about obviously the past, because obviously it gets us to where we're at, because we both had interesting passes. So for those of you guys don't know, and I'll tell you a quick story that leads right into this, is that I was working up in Northern California, and I was overseeing a Ford store and doing very well. I was actually beating up on the Ford store that called me and wanted me to come help them. And they were wondering what I was doing. And I told them it was very simple. I just found out what they were doing, what they weren't doing well. And I just went after those particular pockets, right? There was no genius to this. Where were they missing stuff? And that's what I went after. Well, then the group called me and wanted me to come help their Fresno locations. Went down there, got it going very quickly, 90 days. And I went to the first digital dealer, actually, the very first one in Vegas. And I get there 3 a.m, because I drove. We had, I leave at night, get there at 3 a.m, and 8 a.m, my phone is blowing up. And I don't have to be up till like 10. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Well, the GSM that was at the store I was at, something happened with the GM. He blows out, which was oddly crazy, a different story for a different time, because it was very entertaining. And he had already talked to Scott, and he'd had things lined up to go to Mercedes-Benz of Fresno. And he called me and says, hey, I want you to come over here because I told him about you, and like, we want to put it together over here. And then, mind you guys, I didn't know an absolute thing about any type of luxury cars. I dealt with imports and domestics. That's where I was good at. I dialed in. So I come over there, walk around the store. It was easily to see why they wanted different people. They knew that they had something really, really nice, just didn't have the right processes and people. I come on with Scott and Ray Bischoff, and they said, look, we've heard that you're great at used cars. We want to sell more used cars. We want to make money. And listen, you do what you need to do. And as long as we're making money, we'll leave you alone. Now, this all sounds great, guys, as like when you're interviewing. But I've also heard this a lot from owners and GMs. Okay, like, we won't mess with you. You just do what you do. And usually right around a month later, they're going like, oh, we can't do this. We can't do that. We can't do that. And you're like, I'm out. Like, so we turned it around. Took us about 90 days to get to like the right people, get everything going. And within 6 months, we doubled the sales. Then we tripled the sales. And within the first year, I specifically remember this because I didn't know anything about it, was that we won, what were we, top 2 or 3 in certified used cars for Mercedes in the region. The only one that beat us was, let's get real, there was no chance we were going to beat them, was Fletcher in Orange County. But I mean, they sell 2,000 cars a month. So little old Fresno wasn't going to box with the big boys yet. But we were number 2. And Then we got the President's Award, which was awesome because that's new use. That's everyone working together. That is a big accolade. And Scott was the driving force of that because he drove a real big thing about, guys, we take care of the customer. Don't worry about anything else. Don't worry about what you're going to make. I'll take care of you. Just make sure that we take care of the customer. And that's what we did. Second year, we're selling, 150 plus used cars a month. Everyone's making money. It's great. And here's the best part, guys. We decided after 90 days that they wanted to be the buying center. I had built it over at the Ford store in Fresno. When I left, they gave up on it because they didn't have anybody. We built it over there. We are 200 steps across the street from CarMax.
Yep.
And I sent them thank you letters every day. If people are afraid of them, I thought it was the greatest thing ever. Put up a sign saying we'll beat their offer. We had instant cash offer. We had people doing this. And the best part about this, guys, this is 2011. This is 14 years ago. And this is when people went to the auctions. That's all you did. And Scott allowed us to be pioneers and test it and do it. And they honestly, true to word, never messed with me. If we would have had a bad month, I knew the conversation was coming. That does not mean that Scott did not come to me and ask me, what's this expense? Why did we lose money on this? I bought a Porsche without a Chronos 2 package on it. That lost us a lot of money. Okay. And I was told I get one of those. I don't get two. So I was like, okay, learn your high line very quickly. But we ended up turning something into where it's a Mercedes store. We're buying 80, 90 cars a month from a buying aspect. Rarely did we need to go to the auction. We didn't lose money in wholesale. We actually started buying cars just to flip wholesale, which then gave Scott this most massive leverage to do whatever he wanted. Oh, you want to go crazy on new cars? You want to do something else? It didn't matter. Like, we had options because now we had a different business model. So much so that they wanted to mirror that at Ray's San Jose stores, which they started obviously getting more cars there, taking a different approach, which everybody did well. And then obviously Scott ended up becoming owner of that store and kept it going. And so I think it's really interesting just to see where people come from, because when Scott worked at that store with Asbury, it did okay. And then it didn't do okay. And then it did okay. And then once he had the reins to obviously do it and wasn't under that corporate umbrella, and he saw a different vision, he was able to do that. Then he got the people in there, right? And so it really gets back to finding that right staff and then empowering them, right? If you micromanage them, then just do it yourself, right? Like, if you have the right people, let them do what they do. But Scott was single-handedly one of the two people that I've worked for in my life that were like great. It was inspirational because he would talk to you. He would coach you. It was never one of those berating type of things, which allowed me to obviously do some things that now is why I have Street Smarts. It's why I was able to be a consultant. Is I can go into any store and show them what was being done back in we'll call it the good old days. Then in 08, still was doing it. And then 18, and then COVID. I mean, let's get real. Anyone could buy cars because that was just like throwing darts at a board. But now, I mean, I have clients that are buying cars, and we have buying centers now when we're back in the real business where it is a grind all day long. And I want to give obviously thanks to Scott, because he was the first one to kind of say, hey, let's do it without trying to figure out how to do something different. Let's see what it is before we try to change it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Darrell. I think part of it too is just, just looking at problems and really figuring out what a great solution is. A couple of things is, one is whether it's Loop Me In or the buying center process, when you have the process and the dealer principal is bought in 100% of whatever that process is, and everybody's aligned, when you lose a person, it can have an impact, but it might not have as big an impact if the person that you're bringing in and, has some talent, is bringing some things to the table, but they don't have to reproduce everything either, because they're coming in of, wow, you guys got some great processes. Let me put a little bit of my own shine on this thing and maybe do a couple tweaks here and there, which, as you know, I always allow anyone in my organization to do. I want your input and some tweaks and stuff, but we don't have to just, reinvent the wheel, so to say, and start over, because it's tried and true. And when we did launch, the buying center, it became, and if you look at it from a a dealer principal standpoint, right? I come in and it's how many cars did we sell yesterday? How many appointments do we have today? And then you go to service and it's how many appointments do we have in service today? Right. And it's kind of giving you, you're talking to BDC, it's kind of giving you a sense of what we have working today. Well, what I'd add to that is when you have a buying center, it's actually one of the first questions you ask when you come in. How many appointments do we have today in the buying center? How many cars did we buy yesterday? How many cars are we buying today? Right.
Sure.
The other thing I'd say is because we are back into the real world of car businesses, show me the most efficient used car operation, and I'll show you someone who can sell the most new cars. It's that simple. Because
it really is that simple.
Because you can be aggressive on trade-ins, and when you have a buying center and you are buying cars that maybe you're not going to keep, but you're going to wholesale, and you've got this pad, if you will, a little bit of cash in your wholesale cachet from just buying cars off the street to wholesale. How much more aggressive can you get on the new car side to step up on trades, knowing you have some wholesale profit, maybe if you stepped up a little too high and you're going to get rid of the car early, or you can move some things around and make it up in fixed ops. You can make it up in F&I. You're able to be really efficient. And I think all the things that we're talking about with a buying center, loop me in, recover, those three things combined with, it's amazing the turn that you can get in a store to make it profitable. I was just reading something yesterday. They're saying that the prediction is that eventually, and it's coming up soon, is 92% of the profitability from a dealership is going to come from fixed ops. 92%. So why is that? Right? It's because you're literally basically giving everything away to put units in operation in order to work on those cars. But I will tell you that we could probably lower that 92 if you've got a buying center and loop me in and everything else, because you're going to be more efficient.
And I think that's an interesting segue and tie-in is when you think about that acquisition models, the one thing that we probably haven't talked about, and, as I say this, because everyone thinks that I'm anti-auction, I'm not, I am, but I'm not, is auctions serve a purpose. If you're very strategic and you're going after things like I got 5 leads on a Range Rover Land Rover, and I sell that in the first 5 days, I get it. Go to the auction, because to find that in private party, find that in lead, it's going to be difficult. So if you can replace that and then get another sell from one of those 5 leads, that makes sense. It does. It tracks. Understanding when you go get it from the auction, now you've added expenses. So what I always told people, and it really ties into what you were talking about, and I see us obviously doing quite a few things together, is when you have a buying center, you bring me in, and whether you do the do-it-yourself option or you have me build a buying center for you, is yes, there's an expense to that to get it built, but it's an expense to build it. There's no expense after that. You just have to keep running it. But then when you think about it, is you've reduced transport. You've reduced any type of issues with the auction, arbitration. You've also reduced having to overpay for a car that you really haven't touched unless you're sending people still to the auction. And then you're very limited on what you can do because they can only fly to so many places. So when you do that, is how many GSMs, GMs, owners out there want to leave the control of what they can get up to someone else? I don't know many. If there is some, cool, I'd love to meet you. So, we're typically all control freaks and egomaniacs in some regard. And so when you think about this, why would you not want to have a buy center where you take third-party lead providers, whatever ones you choose to get, private party acquisition through tools out there that aggregate it for you, like Van or VinQ or something of that nature. And then you give the focus to 1, 2, 3 people in your store, whatever it may be. And like you said, now you come in and it's the daily acquisition rate, the daily sale rate, so that you know that. And if I bought 2 cars a day, 3, right? Let's just say you get to 3, but you're at 1 to 2 cars a day. That's 30 to 60 cars every single month that I didn't go to the auction. How much money did that save you by not dealing with transport, arbitration, and fees? So like when I go in, I say, hey guys, what are the average auction fees right now? $1,200. I think it's $1,270 something dollars with all the applicable fees and transport. What if we made a comp plan that we used 50% of that and then we kept the other 50% for the house? And then what if we didn't pay the fees or the amount of money that you had to pay at the auction all the time? You do for the ones you want, and then you can get those cars. How do you lose? That's because again, we don't ever look at the long-term strategy, right? And then when you have loop me in, it's like, okay, now I have these cars. The other side of the loop me in is if you had these cars in stock, they're there. Day one is the day you buy it, rather than I've got to wait for it to get there and then start the clock. Right. Where, good God, with transport, you don't know. It could be a day, 2 days, 3 days. It could be a week. So when you look at that, is like when people are ready to actually say they want to make more money or be more efficient, there's now a place to start, guys. Whether it's SmartWolf or Street Smarts, because there's multiple different options. You now have a loop me in and recover. Can you imagine having those three options and then saying, okay, how? It's almost asking the question, how could you not be successful? Right? It's almost putting a dare out there. I dare you guys to have these options and then fail. Well, I don't know how you would do it.
Yeah, I think couple of things too that you mentioned that I'll comment on is, do you want to have a used car operation that you're obviously taking in X amount of trades, but you're mainly buying your inventory at the auction and you're kind of enhancing, quote unquote, your used car inventory by buying a few cars off the street here and there? Or do you want to buy all your inventory off the street and trade-ins and enhancing your inventory by buying a couple of pieces off the auction, right? And so it's a flip, and the dealers just need to understand, once you turn the flip and you run that, buying center the way it should be, it's repeatable over and over and over again. And just to clarify, maybe Darrell, for some people who obviously don't have a buying center and maybe don't quite understand it, when we're talking about a buying center, although we can have physical buildings, all that stuff, can you just kind of, just for the general, maybe car person that's listening or dealer who's thinking buying centers, is he thinking, I got to go lease a spot or have a separate space? Or we're talking about a couple of desks and a couple of people with a phone who are working internet leads just like you would if you're selling a car? Can you give us just a quick kind of 2-minute synopsis on that?
Yeah. So if you want to create a brick and mortar, sure, you can do that. I would never suggest that out of the gate. That's a lot of money to spend without growing it, right? Like, be smart business people. But no, you have a store. It's as simple as, and I'll be real rough estimate, $4,000. $4,000 for branding, right? And the reason I say that is, if you already have the desk and phone, maybe less now, right? But have some desks and phone. Don't just go get the ratty desk out of the shed and say, we're going to throw you at this, right? There is a vision to that. But you need a couple shirts so that they look different, because they are different. They're buying cars. They're not salespeople. You want to dissociate the nomenclature. Maybe a sign so they understand if someone walks in, that's where I can sell my car. And then you take a Google listing, right? And you can put Appendage B, which I've done for multiple stores, same address, Suite B, and it's in an office or it's in a cubicle. And then they can get it started. And now you got leads, or you get the aggregation, or you do that. And guess what? Then you're going to need training. Your biggest expense is, how do you start and what do you get going? Right. Because you need to understand buying cars is 5 to 10 times harder than selling cars. And if you don't believe me and you're a GM or owner, sit in that chair for a week and tell me I'm wrong. But the methodology, the conversation, and all those things is different, because you have nothing they want and they have everything you need. So that interaction is different on how you train people. So a salesperson that's trying to make an appointment to sell a car, completely different pathway of conversation. But when you're saying, hey, I'm going to give 2 people, these can be BDC type people. These could be CSRs. These do not need to be used car cronies that have been doing it for 25 years. There is software, right? Whether you have the V autos and things of that nature, AccuTrade for the inspections, ICO. Once they get taken in, you can have people work the loop me in. So because there's software, you can actually do this just from a consumer service or a CSR, because it's really just starting the conversation, presenting a value proposition, and then understanding how you're going to do it. Where do you want to be? But yes, it is one of those things that if you said I wanted to do it tomorrow with a small investment to get the right training, the right tools, you'll be buying cars in less than 60 days. And that's by the start of the year, you in essence could be somebody that is moving away from the auction as a strategy and only using it when it's needed.
Yeah, agreed.
You know,
Agreed.
so
Well, I've worked with you. I've seen it. I used it for, I don't know, 15 years. So I recommend it every day. I think, Darrell, I mean, the other thing is, using you and SmartWolf, and possibly if people want to look at, the products and stuff, the other thing that they get is they get you and I. So we've got a lot of powerful knowledge together to help dealers just become super successful. And that's fun for me to do now. So I love working with the dealership groups I'm working with now as well. And, just giving them an opportunity to make more money and just be more efficient. It's a great way to run a store for sure.
No, I agree. Well, you guys, it has been absolutely fantastic. I will tell you guys that I'm a firm believer in the loop me in and recover. It has already been something with one of the groups that I'm working with that I've told them to look at, because again, it's how do you become more effective? How do you make more money? Street Smarts is ready to go live. If you guys are looking for the do-it-yourself option, you're like, hey, we don't need a specialist, but we need to get started. That is a fantastic web academy and genius group that really shows you how to do it. If you're looking for that personal experience and you want to grow it to the next level, which the 2 largest buying centers in the country are my clients. Scott, what Scott didn't tell you, which unfortunately we'll say is a superpower and a curse. I don't take days off because, if I'm successful or if you're successful, I'm successful. So, and I actually enjoy it. I enjoy this. I enjoy helping people. I enjoy seeing it grow. So we appreciate you guys tuning into Street Smarts. Scott kind of showed you guys a couple things, and we talked about a couple things where, you can really become more effective and in turn make more money. And that is directly from the streets, guys. We're not talking from, talking heads from the top of corporations, right? We're talking about what we've seen, what we've used, and what we're doing now. Okay. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you again, Scott, for coming on Street Smarts. And guys, tune in next week for the next episode and next guest. Scott, stick with me for just a second.